Good morning. We'll call our April meeting of Central Oklahoma Transportation Parking Authority to order. I don't see any, but do we have any citizens to be heard? If not, has everybody reviewed the minutes of our March meeting? And if they're okay, I would have a motion to approve. All in favor? Aye. Good. Consent docket, only 2 items on the consent docket. Unless there's any questions by any of the trustees, I would have a motion to approve our consent docket.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Items for individual consideration. First item is approval of plans and specifications for the Sheridan Walker parking garage improvements and authorize the administrator to advertise for bids. So, Jason, if you'd like to just kind of review that process and what we have.
Yes, with this project that we're looking at for the Sheridan Walker parking garage, we have had a couple of different parking committee meetings where we've looked at options for renovating and enhancing that facility. And what we've determined, you can see there in basically the second paragraph of the memo, the base bid that we're looking at through these plans and specifications when approved will contemplate upgrading the lighting fixtures in the garage to LED fixtures. We're going to open up the elevator lobbies so that they're an open air style elevator lobby, as well as renovate the interior of the lobbies, the stairwell, and the elevator cabs. We're also looking at opening up that the southeast corner of the garage where there's that kind of that pedestrian corridor. We're going to open that up a little bit to make it more pedestrian friendly. And then we're also looking at some painting for the exterior of the garage, not the entire garage, but just simply kind of that first level that's right there, basically along the street, the street level. So with that, that's kind of the base bid, and then you can see some add alternates. They range anywhere from lighted signage to some additional painting on the interior, as well as replacing some light fixtures on the top of the garage and some striping. And so again, the way we've structured this is we have our base bid, we'll look at what the add alternates come in as, and then make a recommendation to the parking committee on what we finally move forward with.
But as we visited, the estimated cost of $2 million plus includes all the 7 alternates.
Yes.
Okay.
But again, depending on what they come in at, we may or not be able to put them all in the budget.
But if they all came in under budget, we could do all the alternates then. All right. Any questions? Laura's making notes. You must have a question.
No.
No? Okay.
Not a question for the board anyway.
Oh, okay. Then I would hear a motion to approve item A.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item B is approval of amendment number 2 to the contract with Smart Growth America for conducting a benefit cost analysis on the, I guess the bus rapid transit out northwest. But
yeah, this amendment to the contract really is an extension of the work that Smart Growth America has already assisted us with. Last month, Larry shared a presentation with the board that looked at some BRT along the northwest corridor, and I think he talked a little bit about that time on what our work to that point had been. And when we initially engaged Smart Growth America, we were really looking at that corridor from Classen out to Meridian. And of course, if you remember in the 2005 fixed guideway, that corridor is identified as a bus rapid transit corridor, only the corridor actually extends all the way out to the turnpike. So what we're doing with this contract amendment here is actually tasking the consultant to take a look at extending that corridor from our original study ending at Meridian out to Council, with the idea that we'll be able to make a more informed decision of where, if we're going to start that corridor, where do we really get the most return? Where do we have the most chance of success in terms of ridership and our investment? is it worthwhile to go all the way out to Council, or is it maybe more conducive to start the corridor only going to Meridian? So it'll really help us make a more informed decision. The other reason for the amendment is we initially had an estimate of about $40,000 for this project, and the contract came in under that, so we had a little bit of room within our original budget to do this.
All right. Any questions?
Jason, may I ask a question? In regards to that, but it would pertain to any kind of bus route, would we ever consider having an extended bus route, say from the Turnpike to some location closer in, whether it's MacArthur or some other route, that would just be a circulating bus route to keep all routes within 30 minutes of time? What I'm trying to say is if you went too far out, it would be difficult to, from that starting point all the way downtown, to make it within 30 minutes. So could you ever see a situation where you'd cut the route in half or some other configuration, and then that far outer route would just be a circulating type route, never coming into the downtown area?
Actually, in the study that we're looking at now, the corridor itself, at this point, we're not really contemplating, cutting it in half. We would, to improve the frequency or to maximize frequency, we would want to add as many buses as we could to that corridor. But I think to your point, one of the things we're considering is, particularly if you go all the way out to Council or even eventually further, having feeder routes out in that area that may not parallel the corridor, but they would provide service around that corridor, feeding that BRT.
Yeah. And I could envision maybe more of a north-south circular that could dip down as far south as I-40 possibly, and then come back up, to the Northwest Highway just to feed into that rapid system.
And as we get further along with this benefit cost analysis and present some of those results to the Transportation Committee and such, we'll highlight that feeder route that we do have identified to share with the committee.
And one other question, as part of ACOG, are there discussions as far as trying to tie in the Midwest City area, for example, on the east side, along with some of the more outlying communities, into some type of a route that brings them into the Oklahoma City?
Well, it's definitely part of the regional vision and what the Regional Transit Authority Task Force is working on. It's also consistent with the recommendations from the commuter corridor study that actually identified a rail-based service potentially, eventually, out to that Midwest City area.
Well, and I do want to add that we do have a bus route to Midwest City, and they are partners with us. One of the things, Mr. Chairman, that I did want to add about this is, this is an extremely expensive prospect of BRT that we would really be unable to do without federal grant money. But these kinds of progress points that we make as a board give us an opportunity to bid on grant money as it becomes available and have a much more favorable position when those grants are available because we have already done this kind of work. And so we're really hoping that being prepared gives us a leg up.
Another to your question, David, the time frame or the length of the route, I don't know in the final planning on a BRT how many stops there'd be, but it's designed to be quicker than just a regular bus route. So I think that'd be in the final design, how many stops there'd be up and down Northwest Highway, for example. All right, any other questions? Then I'd have a motion to approve item B.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the ratification of claims and payroll through March 28th. If there are no items on there that any of the trustees have a question about, I would have a motion to ratify.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. All right, our financial reports. Jason, I don't, any highlights that you'd like to mention? And
Sure. If we could start on page 2 of your budget to actual for the 8 months ending February 28th. We'll start by talking about the Transportation Operations Division. And, really, if we look at our overall revenues and our overall expenditures, and we compare our actual revenues and expenditures to date versus budget, they've changed very little since last month in terms of percentages. So the one thing I will point out is that if you're looking at the operating revenues on the Transportation Division, you'll notice this is the first month where we've received the state government subsidy, the grant funds that we receive, or I should say that just the state subsidy we receive. So that has changed since the previous month. What that has done, though, is between beginning to receive that state funding and having our federal grant revenue at just about 102% of our budget, and in essence basically caught up on all of our grant draws, we're in a position where our operating revenues at this point are now slightly ahead of our operating expenditures. And if you'll recall, prior to that, particularly without that state revenue coming in, our revenues were actually a little bit behind our expenditures. So we're in good shape on our revenues. Looking at our operating expenditures, again, in terms of actuals compared to budget, the percentage is relatively unchanged since last month. I will point out that we continue to see expenditures in excess of budget on the other services and fees of about $290,000. That is, however, offset from some savings you see in supplies and fuel. And then our personal services, again, continue to remain under budget due primarily to vacancies at the beginning of the fiscal year. So when you look at total revenues versus total operating expenditures, our revenues exceed our expenditures by $407,000 through 8 months of the fiscal year.
So what's the normal frequency of the state grant revenue? Is it coming quarterly normally, or?
Yeah, I believe it's we're invoiced quarterly. It's either quarterly or twice a year. You want to come up?
Okay,
So 3.
So we don't have any concern because of the timing of this that we would run into a problem at the end of the fiscal year or anything. Okay.
Yep. So looking at page 3, this is our parking operations. Again, comparing the percent of actual revenues and expenditures to what we had budgeted, very consistent with where we were last month. I'll talk about the operating revenues first, and you can see our monthly contract revenue, which is, of course, where most of the revenue comes from, continues to be about 5% under budget. Some of that is offset by transient revenue coming in more than what we had expected at about 120% of the budget, or $135,000 over what we'd estimated through 8 months of the fiscal year. Looking at our operating expenditures, again, we're at about 94% of what we had projected. I will point out that when we looked at the expenditures last month, our other services and fees were a little bit over budget. They're about 109% of what we had estimated, and you can see that with February, those have come back in line to what we would expect. Total operating income after debt service is about $2.5 million through 8 months of the fiscal year. And then looking over on our river cruises operations, again, not a lot has changed in terms of actual revenues and expenses compared to budget, but I did want to point out that the total operating revenue increased significantly in February versus the previous month. And that's because we basically received the remainder of the general fund subsidy. So last month we were about $327,000 less in total operating revenues. But again, that's because we we basically drew on the rest of that general fund subsidy that supports river operations. So what that did in essence is it increased our operating income to about $285,000. But again, as we start having expenses, once the 2017 season kicks off and we finish up the fiscal year, you'll start seeing that operating income, that net surplus decline.
There wasn't anything budgeted for the Oklahoma City Riverfront Redevelopment Authority, but yet we show $25,000. What is that?
Yeah, when we were originally developing the budget, we were not certain. In fact, we had an indication that we may not receive that funding from the riverfront, so we developed our budget not anticipating having that funding, and thankfully we did end up getting some of that. So that's why you see we received some revenue that we didn't actually budget for. And then looking at page 5 in our Spokies operation, again, very similar to what we looked at last month. Probably the main thing to mention here is that with the decline in bike share sponsorship revenue, you can see we've only received $10,000 year to date, and that's really all that we anticipate receiving. That will put us in a position where we will most likely not spend the payment to the transit cash fund line that you see under the operating expenditures heading. That's a payment we make to the transit cash fund to help offset some of the personnel costs associated with managing the program. So without that sponsorship revenue, what we will likely do is either fund that payment to the we'll either fund those personnel costs associated with managing the program either from salary savings in the transit cash fund or a direct transfer from the transportation fund. With that, I'll be happy to answer any other questions.
All right. Any questions by any of the trustees? And I'd hear a motion to approve our financial reports. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Our program reports. First one is a streetcar report.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hope everyone had a great March, great spring break. Busy March for the streetcar. Let this come down, we'll get started. So as always, we'll start off with operations. Again, busy March for operations. We held 4 meetings with Herzog with our negotiation team. We had March 7th, 21st, 22nd, and 29th. Several of those were Herzog flying into town and had all-day meetings to go through the contract and discuss contract issues and items for negotiations. Embark, Maps, Jacobs, SOJ, and Jenkins have started the rail activation plan and the integrated testing plan. Basically, the rail activation plan is a schedule that starts, as soon as our operations come on board and goes all the way through, including into revenue service. Basically, lists everything that has to be done. Testing of the OCS, clearance of trees, just everything. It's a pretty intense schedule. And then the integrated testing plan is kind of self-explanatory, but it's basically all of the testing that has to go on during the testing operations of the streetcar. Embark and the Oklahoma City Traffic Department and the design team got together and we discussed traffic signaling. So obviously once the streetcar starts testing, we start testing traffic signals and discussing timing of traffic signals. We wanted to get ahead of that and get the group together and start talking about it now before that time gets here. Also during March, we've had several rail pulls, and that's what that picture shows there. That's a piece of rail coming, one of those 350-foot strings of rail coming from the south storage yard there at 10th and Robinson and turning the corner and going north over Robinson into downtown. So the trek that rail takes is from 10th Street. It went north on Robinson up to Reno and then east into Bricktown to the Joe Carter section that they were working on. It's pretty interesting to see a 350-foot-long piece of steel bend around corners like that, but it's fun to watch. So currently, and I'll cover this in the rail procurement, but currently we've pulled 6 pieces of rail through downtown. Usually that operation starts around 10 o'clock at night and lasts until about 5 in the morning. So we have a tailgate meeting, safety meeting around 10 o'clock. Everybody gets on board, and then we just get to work. Mainline track design and construction. Obviously, construction continues. I'm sure everyone's seen it. Utility relocation, track slab construction, and installation continues in Bricktown. ONG continues their gas line bores that they're doing on 10th Street. They are doing construction and installation on Hudson. If you've been down there, you've seen them, the pier rig. They're drilling OCS foundations for the overhead catenary. And then also work along the boulevard has begun. If you've driven down there, you've seen them start the demo for the track slab, and we've worked with Corey's group to coordinate all of that so that we can all work together. This picture here shows a skeletonized version of the track slab. You can see the pieces of rail. They've got the metal piece there underneath the rail that helps level everything, and then you can see the intense structural support that goes along with it. We're using number 7 reinforcing, which is over 1/2 inch thick, and then also number 5s, which is about a 1/2 inch thick. And also a neat feature about this reinforcing, with that much reinforcing, it allows us to be able to span a 10-foot section. So if utility work needs to happen, they can dig on either side of the track slab and be able to bridge a 10-foot trench underneath the track slab without interrupting operations. So they can do utility work underneath the track slab, operations can still continue. Storage and maintenance facility work continues. If you've driven by, you've seen a lot more steel going up in the air. We have the track installation scheduled for mid-May. We're looking at starting around the 16th, I believe, with a scheduled completion date of October 14th. This picture here, I've switched it up for you guys. Instead of shooting back to the east, I've went to the east side of the building and shot back to the west. So the streetcars will be coming from the east, driving into this side of the building. At the top of the picture there, I've got some labeling, kind of lays out the building for you. So to the north there, or the right side of the screen, you've got the office and admin, and then continuing south, you've got the office maintenance control, and then the inspection bay. One of the neat things about the inspection bay here is, I don't know if you can see it from the picture, but there's a pit right there. You've got the rail that'll go along there. So what that allows you to do is get down in the pit. You can look at the trucks of the streetcar, look at the underside of the streetcar, and then also above that inspection bay there, there's a mezzanine area. And that allows the maintenance crew to get up there and be able to walk across the top of the streetcar, be able to remove air conditioners that are located on top of the streetcar safely. You don't have to worry about trying to get a ladder up beside the streetcar with a crane or something. Then continuing south, we've got the heavy maintenance bay. That's where the streetcar will come in, hook jacks up to it, you lift it up off the ground, and then you can remove the trucks onto the rail and slide them west out through the maintenance garage door on the west side of the building. That's where you can load them onto a truck and ship them off to get trued or however we move forward with that. And then continuing south is the wash bay, the covered wash bay, and then the covered storage. It's Southwest 7th and Hudson. The address is 406 Southwest 7th. It's just west of Union Station. So this picture here is just to kind of show some progress from last month. The top picture is from February, end of February, and the bottom picture is end of March. You can see that a lot more structural steel has gone up. There's a roof on the maintenance area. They've got a lot more interior framing done on the office area, and then masonry is also started on that front wall. So what they'll do there is they'll build it up with the CMU, and then they'll put a facade on it of the limestone that matches Union Station. Vehicle procurement. So things are moving along great with vehicle procurement. They got one delay. It's from ABB. It's their propulsion equipment. So we originally were going to start receiving cars around July. So that delay has pushed that into October, which actually works out in our favor. It's actually a blessing in disguise because we were working on trying to find a place to store the streetcars. So with this being pushed back to July, that goes into their storage part of their contract where they're required to store the cars for 90 days. So we'll finish up the cars around July. They'll maintain them for the 90 days, and we'll start receiving cars around October, which is around the same time that the storage and maintenance facility will be complete. So we'll be able to take them off the truck, put them right to the storage and maintenance facility. All of our storage worries were taken care of. Just to kind of walk through the assembly, so vehicle number 1 is completely in final assembly. Vehicle number 2 is also in final assembly, and then vehicle number 3, the center or the car A is being skinned. The center section is in framing 2, and car B is in framing 2. And then vehicle number 4, center car and car B are both in framing 1, and then car A is a little further along with framing 2. Vehicle 5 and vehicle 6 haven't come online yet, and then we also have the vehicle 7 that we're looking at receiving around August of 2018. A couple of cool pictures from construction. That top left picture there is the ESS battery assembly. Kind of give you an idea of the size of it. It's about the size of a large coffee table, and it's all set inside of a containment area, so if there's ever an accident or something, we don't have to worry about battery acid spilling onto the street. And so they're stored underneath car A and car B on large trays, so you can walk up to them, and you can pull the tray out, and you can remove the battery assembly with a crane or a forklift, whatever you need to do. This picture there in the middle at the top is car 3 end cab work, just to kind of give you an idea of how the streetcars are framed. And then car 2 center interior shows the interior, the heating mechanism, insulation, windows are installed, the flooring material is installed, and you can see the 2 large handicap wheelchair storage areas. Bottom left picture is car 2 center section. Just kind of give you an idea of how things are progressing. You can see the windows are in, the flooring material's in, it's skinned, and then car 2 A and B cab and final assembly 1. The main reason for this picture is you can start to get a little glimpse of that red bud color. They're starting to do all their cut-ins for the color. Car 1 here should be this is car 2, but car 1 should be moving into painting here pretty soon. Rail procurement. So all of the 59-foot rail sections have been welded together into the 350-foot links. So if you've been down on 10th Street, you've seen all the rail piles turned into large rail links or strings stored on 10th Street. Like I mentioned earlier, the 6 strings of the 350-foot rail have been pulled into place. Pretty interesting to watch. If anybody would like to come out and take a look at it, we'll see if we can get something coordinated. First shipment of special track work is expected to arrive in June 2017. So just to kind of keep everyone up to date on what's happening there, our special track work is coming from Vossloh. It's a company in Austria. They've had some manufacturing delays, which is the reason why these dates keep jumping all over the place. The MAPS office put them on notice, and they flew in from Austria, met with the MAPS office on Monday, and we're expecting a final schedule from Vossloh. They have promised us that our first shipment of special track work will arrive in June. And just to kind of let everyone know what special track work is, it's the switches. Like we'll have 3 switches down on Boulevard at the Hudson intersection that allows us to go north on Hudson or south on Hudson. It's our crosses, like 4th and Robinson, where 4th Street crosses Robinson going southbound. It's just all of the switches and the internals, and also the curved rail that leads up to the switches. Picture up top there is our thermite welding. That's where we take the 350-foot rail links, weld them together. It's a chemical weld. You can find videos of this, them doing it in Kansas City. So basically they put the rails together, do the thermite weld, knock all the slag off, and then grind everything down to make a nice smooth rail. And with that, I'll take any questions.
All right. Any questions? Well, thanks for the update.
All right, thank you.
parking system report. Corey?
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Real quick about revenues, just want to comment that revenues from monthly access or monthly parkers remains consistent with the past 8 months. Event revenue, when comparing February 17th through to February 2016, February 2017 had some extra event revenue to a tune of about, in 2016, we had 3 major events for event revenue, and then in 2017, we had 9 events, major events, which explains that variance of just over $100,000 in event revenue. Wanted to update everybody on the event parking software and hardware that the board approved several months ago, Zip Park. Thought I'd bring a little example. This is one of the handheld units that the cashiers will utilize, along with the printer that's associated with it. When a customer drives up and interacts with the cashier will process any form of payment, meaning credit card, cash, or a pre-printed voucher. This system will allow us to scan a pre-printed parking pass from an electronic device or paper. Once that's done, this will interact with our SCADATA parking system and automatically vend the gate for the customer. During that transaction, the customer will receive a parking ticket and a receipt that's generated from the printer. This parking ticket will be used by the customer to insert into the exit column and exit the garage. Again, it's our intent to start with small events where an estimated attendance is 1,000 or less and progress into larger estimated attendance. Right now, we're testing the system to ensure that all accounting is taken care of and we have strong revenue controls. If we could go on to the next slide, please. Last month, we started the procurement of PARIS, which is used in the parking industry. It stands for Parking Accounts Receivable Information System. It's the software that our current parking operator utilizes to bill for monthly access customers. The decision was made to purchase that software and retain all that data by Cotpa. Technicians are currently working together from the manufacturer of Paris and SCADATA to integrate the two systems. That will reduce some duplication of tasks from the parking staff, where all staff will simply enter any access card information directly into Paris, and then that information will transfer over to SCADATA. We foresee seeing some labor savings from staff and definitely superior auditing and control features and data retention. Next, please. Happy to report that during our mandatory pre-bid meeting on February 28th, we had 11 parking management companies attend that mandatory pre-bid meeting. A couple of weeks ago, we received 5 written proposals, and staff will be conducting interviews next week with some of the organizations. Any questions?
No? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our last program report are river cruises and Spokies.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, to begin with, at the close of the haul out of the Devon Pioneer, a certified marine surveyor was commissioned to perform an inspection of the vessel. This is not a requirement, however, it is something that we've agreed to do to ensure that our vessels are safe and in top condition. The survey was completed on February 27th, and the vessel received the highest rating attainable for a vessel that is not better than new. The rating was above average condition. No safety or other deficiencies were noted on the report. The Pioneer was appraised at $840,000 with a replacement cost of $1.4 million. As a reminder, the vessel has been operating for 9 years. This will be its 10th year, and it had an original cost of $1.2 million. I'm very happy to provide a copy of the report if any of you would like to see it, but we're very pleased with the outcome and the quality of maintenance that we receive from HMS Ferries. The 2017 season of Oklahoma River Cruises got underway last weekend on April 1st. Planned events for the year are listed on this slide. This year will mark the 10th season for the History Comes Alive series with reenactors from the Oklahoma History Center. We're very happy that they are continuing this program. That activity, as well as these other activities, are designed to help promote ridership. For Spokies, our bike trips in February were up 14% over 2016 and 70% over 2015. Obviously, the new equipment has been a plus for us, as well as the fair weather and the public awareness campaigns. I bring this slide up again. I brought it up last report. Things have changed very little from what we've seen before. This gives us an idea of which stations generate the most traffic, either from checkouts or check-ins. And we look at this to identify areas where more density might be required. For example, in Bricktown, more stations could help alleviate some of the traffic at that particular station, which helps us with some of our balancing issues. And then, of course, reaching out to stations with an automobile alley could help promote some of the trips from that station as well. Spokies was present at the Bricktown Octopus event on March 3rd. Josh Fott, the general manager of Spokies, made contact with many of the downtown and Bricktown business owners, and discussions are in progress about further expansion in those areas. Spokies was also present at Open Streets on April 2nd. Despite the threat of rain, the event was well attended. Attendees participated in Spokies Roulette. Attendees could spin a bicycle tire to win prizes. Top winners received an annual or 1-month pass. Other winners received coupons for a free 2-day pass, a free 30-minute ride, or $2 off on a monthly pass. Later this year, Spokies will participate in the Myriad Gardens Full Moon Bike Rides. We will be waiving usage fees during the event. What this means is if you're a walk-up user, in other words, you're not a pass holder, you put your card in, your credit card in, you pay $3.50, but then you can ride the entire event without incurring the $1.75 or $3.50 per half-hour usage fees. If you're already a pass holder, a monthly or an annual pass holder, the ride is included in your membership, so there are no usage fees applied to that. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
The increase in ridership, how many more bicycles do we have now than originally?
Well, that's an interesting question. When it started in 2012 with the city, I believe there were 95 bicycles. When we assumed control in August of 2014, after removing bicycles that were damaged and unusable, we were at 26. In August of 2016, we replaced the entire fleet with 50 B-cycle bicycles. So, and then later in the year, due to our contribution for a demonstration in another city, we were given an additional bicycle. So we have 51 bikes in our fleet right now.
You get an A for remembering all those numbers.
You can thank LFR.
Any other questions? Thank you. All right, I'd hear a motion to approve our program reports. Second. All in favor? Aye. Good. All right, any items from the trustees? David?
Just a thought.
Okay.
Just a thought. Excuse me. Jason, we're coming up quickly on this, and I was just thinking about it. Earth Day is, I think, April 22nd, which is a Saturday. We normally have a Free Friday program with respect to the bus during the summertime, and I'm just wondering if we could do some type of promotion on that Friday prior to Earth Day, just to further encourage people. I'm not suggesting we provide free fares on Friday, but just something in connection with Earth Day on the 22nd. And we'll see if the council can do something like an alternative transportation to work day. Because I know in May we have Ride Your Bike to Work Day, but this would include public transportation, walking, as well as biking, and a combination. You could walk to the bus stop, you could ride your bike to the bus stop, and then take the bus on in. So just a thought.
Yeah, we'll be glad to put together some additional ideas on how to publicize that. I know that is one that we do through our standard social media and stuff, get the word out, but there might be some additional things we can do, certainly.
Yeah, and maybe we just try to promote the combination of the two, public transportation and either walking or biking to a bus stop. I mean, you could walk halfway into work like me and then take the bus the other halfway or something. Thank you.
Well, it's better. You can ride your bicycle from your office to the council meeting and be a...
No, I just walk over here.
Oh, you just walk over. I know you just walk.
But no, I'm tempted to try to walk all the way from where I live downtown. That's close to 12 miles. Now, I can do my bike. It's no big deal, but to walk. But if I choose my route, if I walk along a bus route, at any time I just get worn out, I can hop on the bus and take it on in, I was thinking.
All right. Okay. All right, Jason, any final comments?
Yes, just one final comment. I wanted to report to the trustees that we had our annual meeting with the Oklahoma Railway Museum. Actually, it was last month. Mr. Rice and his group. And just as a reminder there, they do run that historical train and part of the Cotpa-owned rail right-of-way, and they just do a great job in helping us maintain that right-of-way. And so it's a good partnership. Enjoyed the lunch with Mr. Rice and to learn more about what they're doing. Did want to mention that their season for the train rides also kicks off in April, and so it sounds like they have a pretty busy season planned there.
All right. Well, everybody have a great rest of April, and we'll see you at the next meeting, and we're adjourned.